They banned their own daughter from her brother's wedding, maybe because her curves didn't fit the aesthetic for the cameras, hired security to keep her 500 feet from the venue, and blocked her number so she couldn't beg to attend, completely unaware that the fat disgrace they were hiding owned the entire wedding hall and had just discovered their golden son was marrying a paid actress. Their family fortune was a lie, and in exactly 10 minutes, she was going to turn on the sprinklers and drench their Vogue-worthy ceremony in front of 500 guests and international media. His mother screamed when she opened the gift, not because of what was inside, but because of whose name was on the deed to the building they were standing in, proving that the daughter she called the Stain owned more than their entire bloodline combined, and the wedding she'd orchestrated to save the family from bankruptcy was actually the ceremony of her complete destruction. The curvy black daughter they banned from the wedding didn't crash it. She didn't need to. She owned it. And what she did when they opened her gift didn't just stop the wedding. It exposed a double scam between bride and groom, revealed her parents' secret bankruptcy, and proved that the body they shamed for not fitting their aesthetic actually took up the most powerful space of all, the deed to their entire legacy. Could a family who measured worth in waistlines and photo angles ever comprehend they'd been shaming their only actual success story? Would a mother who valued Vogue coverage over her daughter's humanity survive the revelation that her disgraced daughter was the only one keeping them from homelessness? And would a golden son, married to a fraud in a venue owned by the sister he helped exclude, ever understand that the proportions that mattered weren't Sylvia's hips, but the size of her bank account compared to their debts? Dear viewers, this powerful story reveals how fat phobia and colorism destroy families from within, and why people who measure human worth in dress sizes always discover too late that real value has nothing to do with appearance. You'll discover that silence can be your deadliest weapon, that family humiliation creates family destroyers, and that the people dismissed as embarrassments are often the ones controlling everything behind the scenes. Watch how a curvy, dark-skinned woman transforms body shaming into building ownership, how patient documentation of cruelty becomes public exposure, and how a family's obsession with image becomes the very thing that destroys their image forever. What would you have done in Sylvia's position? Would you have revealed your success earlier, or let them humiliate themselves? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you've ever been body shamed by family, this story is for you. Subscribe now for more captivating stories that entertain, educate, and remind you that the family member they call the embarrassment might be the only one holding real power. The wedding invitation arrived on gold-embossed cardstock that cost more per square inch than most people's monthly rent. Sylvia Adama held it in her hands at the family mansion's breakfast table, reading the elegant calligraphy that announced her younger brother Apollo's marriage to Zara Sterling, and noticing immediately that while the invitation listed her parents as hosts, her own name appeared nowhere, not in the wedding party, not as family, not even as a guest. "There's been a mistake," Sylvia said quietly, her deep voice carrying across the marble dining room where her mother, Lady Vespera Adama, sat reviewing seating charts with the wedding planner. "My name isn't on the invitation." Lady Vespera didn't look up from her charts, her surgically enhanced features remaining perfectly composed, her skin lightened through years of expensive treatments creating the pale complexion she considered proper for Nigerian royalty. Everything about her appearance designed to distance herself from the darkness she'd been born with. "That's not a mistake, Sylvia," Vespera replied, her accent a studied British affectation, despite never living outside Lagos. "You're not invited." The wedding planner, a thin woman in an expensive suit, looked uncomfortable, gathering her materials as if sensing the conversation was about to become something she shouldn't witness. but Vespera gestured for her to stay, apparently wanting an audience for this particular cruelty. Sylvia's hand tightened on the invitation, her full curves evident in the simple dress she wore, her dark skin, the same deep brown her mother had been born with before the treatments, glowing with natural health, her thick, natural hair in a beautiful twist-out that had taken her an hour to perfect that morning. "I'm your daughter," Sylvia said, and hated how small her voice sounded, how decades of this treatment could still make her feel like a child, begging for love she'd never receive. "Apollo is my brother. How can I not be invited to his wedding?" Vespera finally looked up, and the disgust in her eyes was so naked, so complete, that Sylvia actually took a step backward. "Because this wedding will be in Vogue Africa," Vespera said, each word precise and cutting. "We have international photographers, media from 3 continents, society coverage that will define our family's image for the next decade. And you," she paused, her eyes travelling deliberately over Sylvia's curves with the kind of assessment usually reserved for livestock at market. "Your proportions do not fit the aesthetic." The wedding planner made a small sound of shock, but Vespera silenced her with a look. "You look like the help, Sylvia," Vespera continued, warming to her subject now, cruelty flowing freely. "Not the sister of the groom. Your skin is too dark, despite all the products I've bought you. Your body is too excessive, your hair too natural." When people see the wedding photos, they need to see elegance, refinement, beauty. They need to see a family worthy of the Sterling connection. Sylvia felt something crack inside her chest. Not breaking, because this wasn't the first time, but settling into a different configuration, hardening into something that might eventually become useful. "The Sterling connection," Sylvia repeated softly. "Zara Sterling, the oil heiress." "Exactly," Vespera smiled, missing entirely the tone in Sylvia's voice. "Which is why everything must be perfect. We're holding the ceremony at Echo Atlantic Royal Hall, the most prestigious venue in West Africa. The guest list includes ministers, ambassadors, old money from 3 continents. We cannot have you," she gestured vaguely at Sylvia's body, "disrupting the visual narrative." Chief Ozymandias Adama entered the dining room then, Sylvia's father, tall and distinguished in his traditional agbada, the very picture of Nigerian royalty, if you didn't look too closely at the fraying on his sleeves, the slightly outdated cut of the fabric, the way his jewellery, while expensive-looking, had a certain costume quality to anyone who actually knew the difference. "Is there a problem?" Ozymandias asked, though his tone suggested he already knew and had simply come to reinforce his wife's decision. "Sylvia seems confused about the wedding arrangements," Vespera said. "Perhaps you can clarify for her." Ozymandias looked at his daughter, his firstborn, the child who'd once been his pride before her body developed curves instead of the fashionable thinness their circle preferred. And Sylvia saw the exact moment he chose his financial survival over his paternal instinct. "Your mother is right, Sylvia," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. "This wedding is crucial for the family. Apollo is marrying into serious wealth. The Sterling oil fortune will secure our legacy for generations. We can't afford any complications." "Complications," Sylvia echoed. "You mean me." "I mean that every detail must be controlled," Ozymandias replied. "The venue, the guests, the family presentation, you understand." What Sylvia understood, standing in the mansion she'd grown up in, was that her parents had spent her entire adult life treating her like a shameful secret while parading her thin, light-skinned younger brother like a prize. And now they were literally banning her from his wedding because her body didn't photograph well enough for their social ambitions. "I understand perfectly," Sylvia said quietly, setting down the invitation. "I'll stay home." Vespera's shoulders relaxed slightly. apparently relieved the confrontation was over. Good. It's for the best, really. You can watch the live stream if you'd like. We're broadcasting on the 3 platforms. You'll see how beautiful it all is. Sylvia walked toward the dining room exit, her heels clicking on marble floors, and paused at the doorway. "Mother," she said, turning back. "Just out of curiosity, how are you paying for all this? The venue alone must cost a fortune." Vespera's face tightened almost imperceptibly, but she recovered quickly. "That's not your concern. Your father and I have resources you know nothing about." "I'm sure you do," Sylvia replied, and something in her tone made the wedding planner look up sharply, as if finally recognizing that the dismissed daughter might be more dangerous than the powerful parents. But Vespera was too focused on her seating charts to notice, and Ozymandias had already moved on to reviewing the bar selections, and neither of them saw Sylvia pull out her phone as she left the room, typing a quick message to her assistant. "Activate the wedding plan, it's time. Stop right here, because we need to understand what's actually happening in this scene beyond simple cruelty. What you're witnessing is the intersection of fat phobia, colorism, and family scapegoating, a toxic combination. That's devastatingly common but rarely discussed with the nuance it deserves. Vespera has lightened her skin and maintains rigid thinness. Not because she naturally prefers this aesthetic, but because she's internalized colonial beauty standards that tell her dark skin and natural bodies are inferior. Her cruelty towards Sylvia isn't really about Sylvia, it's about Vespera's own unresolved shame about the body and skin tone she was born with. Key indicators: skin lightening treatments, attempting to erase her own blackness, British accent, affectation. Distancing from Nigerian identity, obsession with aesthetics, measuring worth through European beauty standards, treating darker daughter as stain, rejecting the version of herself she couldn't change. Why these often occur together. In many cultures affected by colonialism, there's a dual hierarchy. Lighter skin equals higher status, closer to colonizer appearance. Thinner bodies equals more refined wealth. Signalling through restraint. Sylvia represents the inverse of both. Dark skin, natural, unmodified blackness. Curvy body, natural, unmodified femininity. To Vespera, Sylvia's refusal to lighten her skin or shrink her body is an act of defiance against the social climbing Vespera has dedicated her life to. The family scapegoat dynamic. Why families create a disgraced child. Scapegoating serves multiple functions. 1. Deflection. Family can project all their shame onto one person. 2. Unity. Other family members bond through shared rejection of scapegoat. 3. Control. Scapegoat's existence threatens family's false image. 4. Economics. In this case, Sylvia's appearance threatens financial survival plan, the scapegoat child, profile, often most intelligent, successful member, threat. Refuses to perform family's false image, represents what family is ashamed of, becomes repository for all family dysfunction, actually holding family together while being blamed for breaking it. Notice how Vespera weaponizes media coverage, international photographers, your existence embarrasses us globally, social status, ministers and ambassadors, you're not worthy of this class, visual narrative, professional term-making exclusion sound aesthetic rather than abusive, the sterling connection, financial survival, justifying emotional violence, translation of Vespera's words, what she says, your proportions don't fit the aesthetic. What she means, your body reminds me of the blackness I'm trying to escape. What she says, you look like the help. What she means, dark skin and curves signify lower class in my colonized worldview. What she says, visual narrative. What she means, I'm selling a fantasy of proximity to whiteness. and your body disrupts that. Vespera's fat phobia and colorism are amplified by financial desperation. She's not just maintaining appearances, she's using Apollo's marriage as a business transaction to avoid bankruptcy. Sylvia's body becomes an obstacle to economic survival, making the exclusion feel justified in Vespera's mind. The dangerous logic. We're going bankrupt. Apollo must marry money. The wedding must be perfect. Perfect means European beauty standards. Sylvia violates those standards. Sylvia must be removed. Red flags. In this exclusion, banning family member from wedding. Extreme rejection, justifying through appearance. Dehumanization, making it about media. Prioritizing image over relationship. You look like the help. Pull. Class-based racial insult. Father's compliance. Entire family system aligned against her. Offering live stream. Rubbing exclusion in her face. Wedding planner as audience. Public humiliation. Intentional. Here is why it works. Research shows family-based fat phobia creates more psychological damage than stranger-based colorism from same-race parents causes complex identity trauma. Scapegoating leads to PTSD-like symptoms even in adulthood. Appearance-based exclusion from major life events causes lasting relational damage, but also scapegoats often become highest achievers, proving worth through success. Excluded children develop independence, forced self-reliance. Family rejection can liberate, freedom from toxic system. What Sylvia should have done. Early in life, she should have established firm boundaries around body comments, limited contact with parents who couldn't respect her, built chosen family outside toxic biological family, documented pattern of abuse for legal protection, refused to financially support parents who demean her. When wedding exclusion happened, recognized this as abuse, not aesthetic preference. Cut contact immediately rather than seeking approval, pursued legal action if financially supporting family, made exclusion public to prevent. Gaslighting. Protected her mental health over family image. What Sylvia actually did, strategic, stayed silent while gathering information, appeared compliant while planning response, used their assumptions against them, documented everything for maximum impact, waited for perfect moment to reveal power. The question for you, have you experienced fat phobia or colorism from your own family? How did you handle family members who measured your worth by your appearance? At what point should someone cut off family who consistently dehumanizes them? Drop your experiences in the comments. Your story might help someone else recognize they deserve better than this abuse. Now back to the story, where Sylvia's compliance is about to reveal itself as something far more dangerous. 2 weeks before the wedding, Sylvia sat in her actual office, the penthouse headquarters of Urban Pulse, the real estate technology company she'd built from nothing while her family thought she was unemployed and living off family charity, reviewing the background check her security team had compiled on Zara Sterling. "This doesn't make sense," Marcus, her head of security, said, spreading photos across her glass desk. "According to the Sterling family office, Zara Sterling is in Paris right now, attending a sustainable energy conference, but the woman your brother is marrying." He placed another photo beside the first. Same face, different context. This Zara was serving drinks at a London pub 2 months ago. "Is not Zara Sterling," Sylvia finished, her mind already calculating implications. "She's an actress. Someone hired her to play the role." "The question is who?" Marcus replied. "And why would your brother not verify his own fiancé's identity?" Sylvia laughed without humour. "Because Apollo has never verified anything in his life. If a beautiful woman tells him she's an heiress, he believes her. It wouldn't occur to him to check." She pulled up the financial records her team had been quietly compiling on her family for the past 6 months, ever since her mother's cruelty had crossed from habitual to pathological, and Sylvia had decided that understanding their true situation was necessary for her own protection. What she found was devastating in its predictability. The Adama fortune, built by her grandfather through actual business acumen, had been systematically depleted over 2 decades of Vespera and Ozymandias living beyond their means. The mansion was mortgaged 3 times over, the cars were leased, the jewellery was fake. Even Ozymandias's traditional chieftaincy title had been purchased through loans they couldn't repay. They were millions in debt to some very dangerous people. "Look at this," Sylvia said, highlighting a series of transactions. 6 months ago, someone paid off their most pressing debts, the ones that would have resulted in, let's say, immediate and violent collection. The money came from an offshore account registered to Sterling Oil's subsidiary. "So the real Zara Sterling's father paid their debts?" Marcus asked. "No," Sylvia said slowly, seeing the pattern. "The real Sterling wouldn't just give money. This was a business transaction. Someone paid the Adama debts in exchange for access. They sent a fake Zara to marry Apollo, probably planning to drain whatever assets they thought remained." "But there are no assets," Marcus said. "Exactly. So we have a fake heiress marrying a fake rich boy, both sides thinking they're scamming the other, and my parents are so desperate they're betting everything on this wedding saving them." Sylvia sat back in her chair, expensive, ergonomic leather that accommodated her curves comfortably, unlike the rigid antiques her mother filled the mansion with, and felt a plan crystallizing. "Marcus," she said, "I want to buy something." "What kind of something?" "The Echo Atlantic Royal Hall. Can we do that in 2 weeks?" Marcus pulled up property records on his tablet, scrolling through ownership structures and zoning requirements. "It's currently owned by a holding company that's been trying to sell for 6 months. Market value is around 50 million naira, but they'd probably take 40 million for a fast cash sale." "I'll pay 45 million, Sylvia said. "I want the sale completed the day before the wedding, and I want it kept absolutely quiet until I decide to make it public." "You're going to own the venue where they banned you from attending," Marcus said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "That's beautiful." "That's just the beginning," Sylvia replied. "I'm also going to prepare a gift for the happy couple, something that opens their eyes to exactly who they're marrying." "And your parents?" Sylvia pulled up the foreclosure notice that her family didn't know had been filed. Their mansion would be seized in 3 weeks. "I'm going to give them exactly what they've always wanted," Sylvia said softly. "A perfect image, right up until the moment it shatters in front of everyone they've ever tried to impress." The Echo Atlantic Royal Hall gleamed in the Lagos sun like a monument to excess. Lady Vespera stood at the entrance, greeting guests in a custom gown that cost more than most people's annual salary, her skin powdered lighter, her body corseted thin, her smile wide and brittle as she air-kissed ministers and ambassadors and old money from 3 continents. Everything was perfect. The flowers, imported roses in cream and gold, cascaded from crystal vases. The photographer from Vogue Africa adjusted his equipment. The live stream had already attracted 50,000 viewers. International society bloggers updated their feeds with breathless coverage of Nigerian royalty meets oil dynasty. Chief Ozymandias stood beside his wife, resplendent in traditional wedding attire that had been rented, not purchased, though none of the guests knew that. His smile was proud as he shook hands with men who could destroy him financially if they knew the truth. At the altar, Apollo Adama waited in a custom tuxedo, tall and slim and light-skinned, everything his parents had cultivated him to be. Beside him, Zara Sterling was stunning in a couture gown, her performance as oil heiress so polished that even the actual society members believed it. The wedding planner gave the signal. The music began. Everything was perfect. And then the courier walked down the aisle. He wasn't a guest. That was immediately obvious from his simple suit and official bearing. He was flanked by 2 state police officers, which caused a ripple of confusion through the assembled crowd. Vespera's smile faltered. Ozymandias took a step forward, as if to intercept, but the police officer's presence froze him. The courier walked straight to the altar and placed a large, velvet-wrapped box on the table beside the unity candle. A note attached read in elegant calligraphy, "To the happy couple, open immediately. Love, the stain." Apollo's face went pale. Zara's performance cracked slightly, confusion visible beneath her practiced smile. Vespera made a sound of rage and started toward the altar, but the officiant, an elderly bishop with kind eyes, raised his hand. "It is bad luck to refuse a blessing," he intoned solemnly. "The gift must be received." Later, Sylvia would transfer a significant donation to the bishop's charity for his perfect timing. Apollo's hands shook as he untied the velvet wrapping. The box opened in 3 sections. The first section contained a red folder. The second section contained a black folder. The third section contained a gold key. Apollo opened the red folder first, and Sylvia, watching from her penthouse on a live feed she'd had installed in the hall she owned, saw the exact moment his world ended. The photos spilled across the altar. Zara Sterling, or whoever she really was, serving drinks in a London pub, waiting tables in Paris. The same woman, different contexts, all dated within the last 6 months. The bottom of the folder contained a single sheet with a name, Catherine Morrison, actress for hire, specialising in long-term role-play, client, debt recovery services Lutted. Apollo looked up at his bride, his face cycling through confusion, understanding, betrayal. "Who are you?" he whispered. Zara, Catherine, made a calculation visible on her face. The performance was over. She could keep lying, or she could cut her losses. "Someone who was supposed to get paid," she said coldly. "Your family was supposed to have money. That was the entire point." The murmur through the crowd turned into audible gasps. Vespera pushed through to the altar, snatching the black folder before anyone else could reach it. What she saw inside made her scream. It was a foreclosure notice for the Adama mansion, effective immediately. But worse, much worse, were the financial documents beneath. Every debt, every fake asset, every desperate loan exposed in professional accounting detail, their bankruptcy laid out in numbers that couldn't be argued with. Ozymandias grabbed the folder from his wife's trembling hands, and his face went grey as he saw the extent of their exposure. But the loudest scream, the one that would be replayed on social media for weeks, came when Vespera picked up the gold key. Attached to it was a property deed, the Echo Atlantic Royal Hall. Owner, Curvy Girl Enterprises, LLC. Director, Sylvia Adama. The date of sale, yesterday. Vespera's scream was primal, rage and humiliation and dawning horror combining into a sound that silenced the entire hall. And then the screens turned on. Every display in the venue, positioned for the wedding slideshow, suddenly showed Sylvia sitting in her penthouse, elegant in a custom gown that celebrated every curve her mother had shamed, her dark skin glowing, her natural hair styled in an elaborate crown, looking every inch the queen her parents had never wanted her to be. "Hello, family!" Sylvia's voice boomed through the sound system. "Thank you all for coming to my building for my brother's wedding to his actress. I hope you're enjoying the aesthetic." The crowd's reaction was somewhere between shock and delight. This was better than Vogue coverage. This was the scandal of the decade. "Mother," Sylvia continued, her voice honey-sweet, "you were right. I don't fit your visual narrative. My proportions are too excessive, my skin too dark. my hair too natural, which is why I bought this venue, so I could legally control who fits my aesthetic. And you know what? You don't fit. Vespera was shaking, her carefully constructed image literally crumbling in front of international media. You have 10 minutes to vacate the premises before I turn the sprinklers on, Sylvia said. Security will escort you. Don't worry about the photos. I'm sure this will still make Vogue. Nigerian. Society wedding ends in fraud exposure. Very clickable. The screen went dark, but Sylvia's voice continued. Oh, and Apollo, the mansion you're losing, I'm buying it. You're welcome to visit your sister in her home, if you can fit my aesthetic. Then the fire alarm began to sound. Not an emergency, just Sylvia activating the building's systems as promised. The sprinklers engaged exactly 10 minutes later. 500 guests in couture gowns and custom suits ran for the exits as water cascaded from the ceiling, destroying the perfect wedding Vespera had orchestrated. The Vogue photographer captured it all. The live stream hit 2 million viewers, and Sylvia sat in her penthouse, eating popcorn, watching her family's image drown in the same water system she now controlled. Some bodies don't fit aesthetics. They own buildings. Sylvia stood in the foyer of the Adama mansion, her mansion now, purchased at foreclosure auction for a fraction of its theoretical value. Apollo sat on the stairs, thin and diminished, no longer the golden son, but just a man who'd been left at the altar by an actress and abandoned by parents who blamed him for ruining their last chance at solvency. Why did you buy it? Apollo asked quietly. The house, after everything. Sylvia looked at her brother, the one who'd never defended her, who'd stood silent while their mother shamed her, who'd been complicit in her exclusion, and felt something like pity. Because it's a beautiful house, she said simply, and someone should live in it who actually appreciates what they have, rather than constantly performing worth they don't possess. Are we going to live here? Apollo asked, and the hope in his voice was pathetic. You can visit, Sylvia replied, if you fit my aesthetic. She walked up the stairs, her heels clicking on marble that now belonged to her curves moving through spaces that had been designed to shame them, and she claimed every inch of the mansion her parents had lost through their own cruelty and financial stupidity. The Adama legacy wasn't gone. It had simply transferred to the family member who'd actually earned it. Some proportions don't fit photos. They fit deeds. The end. Have you ever been excluded from a family event because of your appearance? How did you handle it? Would you have bought the wedding venue like Sylvia or chosen a different kind of revenge? Drop your story in the comments below, and if you've ever been called the family embarrassment, this one's for you. You might just be the one with all the real power.